Math Strategies with Bailey Ginnessy. I am your host, Bailey Ginnessy. Today we have numerous guests to discuss STAAR Math Strategies. Today, our first guest is Allie Witkoff. Allie, what are your feelings towards order of operations?
Personally, I am a fan of PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, divide, add, subtract. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally.
Well, thank you for coming out today. Now for our next guest. Our next guest is Brody Bauman. Brody Bauman, how do you multiply fractions?
It's no problem. It's top times top and bottoms times bottom.
Thank you for being here today. And now for our next guest. Our next guest is Camden Shaw. Camden, how do you feel about converting a decimal to a percentage?
I think Dr. Pepper rocks. Move the decimal 2 places to the right.
Thank you for coming out today. And now for our next guest. Our next guest is Miles Boyd. Miles, how do you divide fractions?
Dividing fractions is easy as 5. Flip the second one and multiply.
Thank you for being here today. And now for our next guest. Our next guest is Kaylin Bean. Kaylin, how do you feel about converting different units of weight?
I use the acronym King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk.
Thank you for coming here today. Now for our next guest. Our next guest is Andy Jenkins. Andy, how do you add integers?
Same signs add to keep, opposite signs subtract. Keep the sign of the higher number, then you'll be exact.
There you go, folks. And now for our next guest. Our next guest is Sajal Basin. Sajal, how do you feel about converting fractions into decimals?
I prefer the ice cream method. You put the ice cream in the freezer and the cone outside the freezer.
Thank you for being here today. Now for our next guest. Our next guest is Emma Isom. Emma, how do you multiply and divide integers?
Multiply or divide, it's an easy thought. Same signs are positive and different signs are not.
Thank you for being here today. And now for our next guest. Our next guest is Francesca Bernoulli. Francesca, how do you convert a percentage into a decimal?
I prefer, please don't litter, move the decimal 2 times to the left.
Thank you for being here today.
You're
Now for our next guest. Our next guest is DeAndre Harrison. DeAndre, how do you line up your decimals?
Decimals line up in add, subtract, divide, and not multiply.
Thank you for being here today. And now for our next guest. Princess Cupcake. Princess, what do you do when you see a problem like this?
When there is no sign, I multiply.
Thank you for being here today. Now for our next guest. Our next guests are Zakiria Williams, Joey Garcia, and LaKaylin Neal. Can you all tell me about your place values?
Yes.
Behind the decimal, we call in. First is the tens place, tens are first. Next come the hundreds, behind the tens. Hundreds take 2 places, they are small. Last comes the thousandths, they are third. Thousands take 3 places, tens, hundreds, thousandths.
Thank you so much. Now for our next guest. Our next guest is Sophia Soon. Sophia, how do you remember angles?
I remember them by complementary is 90 degrees and supplementary is 180 degrees.
Thank you for being here today. And now for our next guest. Our next guest is Katie Marcos. Katie, tell us about lateral area.
Lateral area is faces, no bases.
Thank you. Now for our next guest. Our next guest is Shamrika Jones. Shamrika, tell us about surface area.
Surface area is all faces and bases added.
Thank you. Now for our next guest. Our next guest is Zakiria Williams. Zakiria, what is volume big B?
Volume big B is the area of the base times
times the height for prism and divide by 3 for pyramid.
Thank you for being here today. Now for our next guest. Our next guests are Sharkeisha and Tony. Can y'all tell me about solving proportions?
Yes. Cross multiply, then you divide.
Thank you. Thank you for watching Math Strategy.
What are you doing in my office?
End the show, bye!
Good luck, you guys. Y'all are gonna do great.
Hey, 6th grade, I just wanted to wish you good luck today on your math test. Just think about all the strategies you've worked on. You've worked hard this year. I believe in you. I know you're going to do great. So good luck. And remember that tigers never, ever quit.
It's here. We're ready for the STAAR. You've been practicing for this. You know this. Remember to sing your little songs in your head. Remember things like Dr. Pepper Rocks and Please Don't Litter. And remember, the STAAR never bothered us anyway. Good luck.